reading something Edward Curtin wrote early December 2021 about the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. book, Fauci. It does not take great intelligence to realize that when countries throughout the world act in a synchronized way in locking down their populations and repeat the same message on cue, that such events are certainly coordinated. The entire COVID-19 propaganda campaign, culminating in its push to enforce multiple vaccines that are not vaccines and are based on fraudulent PCR tests, has been long in preparation, and the intelligence agency's fingerprints are all over its planning. War game scenarios, weaponized vaccines, the CIA, the NIH, Gates, Fauci, the NIAID, DARPA, Wired magazine, the financial elites and their power centers, such as the World Economic Forum, etc. They are all involved in a conspiracy to impose a rigid global tyranny over regular people for the benefit of the world's super rich. Since Fauci's coordinated lockdowns early in 2020, there has been a $3.8 trillion shift in wealth upwards to the super rich, creating 500 new billionaires while pulverizing the middle class and destroying small businesses, enriching Fauci and his pharmaceutical and robber baron corporate partners, and causing vast suffering and death all around the world. None of this is accidental. Kennedy documents it all. He writes, "Dark winter, Atlantic storm, and global mercury were only 3 of over a dozen germ games staged by military, medical, and intelligence planners leading up to the COVID-19. Each of these Kafkaesque exercises became uncanny predictors of a dystopian age that pandemic planners dubbed the new normal. The consistent feature is an affinity among their simulator designers for militarizing medicine and introducing centralized autocratic government. Each rehearsal ends with the same grim punchline. The global pandemic is an excuse to justify the imposition of tyranny and coerced vaccination. The repetition of these exercises suggests that they serve as a kind of rehearsal or training drill for an underlying agenda to coordinate the global dismantlement of democratic governance. Virtually all of the scenario planning for pandemics employ technical assumptions and strategies familiar to anyone who has read the CIA's notorious psychological warfare manuals for shattering indigenous societies, obliterating traditional economics and social bonds, for using imposed isolation and the demolition of traditional economies to crush resistance, to foster chaos, demoralization, dependence, and fear, and for imposing centralized and autocratic governance. That's the end of the Kennedy excerpt. U.S. and foreign intelligence agencies have dominated the COVID-19 military project from the start. The CIA and Fauci are central to the official, quote, conspiracy theory, end quote, accurately called fact, including, quote, Operation Warp Speed under Trump. Trump simply carried on the work of his predecessors, including Obama, but acted as if he was opposed to it. It has always been a bipartisan program because the CIA runs both parties. I have my own personal opinion about Trump on that. I think Trump was just, I think he was clueless when it came to COVID. And I think I don't think he was insincere in this Operation Warp Speed, but it was a big mistake in my view. Back to the article. When he was in prison in Germany after returning in 1939 from Union Theological Seminary in New York City to oppose Hitler, the German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote the following from his prison cell before he was executed. This is a good quote. "Against stupidity we have no defense. Neither protests nor force can touch it. Reasoning is of no use. Facts that contradict personal prejudices can simply be disbelieved. Indeed, the fool can counter by criticizing them, and if they are undeniable, they can just be pushed aside as trivial exceptions. So the fool, as distinct from the scoundrel, is completely self-satisfied. In fact, they can easily become dangerous, as it does not take much to make them aggressive. For that reason, greater caution is called for than with a malicious person, with a malicious one. Never again will we try to persuade the stupid person with reasons, for it is senseless and dangerous." By stupid, he did not mean that such people lacked intellectual ability, for they were often very smart, but they had fallen under the spell of public power and lost all independence of mind. Sound like anybody you know? Having become a mindless tool, the stupid person will also be capable of any evil and at the same time incapable of seeing that it is evil. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is still trying to reach these people. His is an heroic task. No wonder Kennedy is named for St. Francis, to whom he is devoted. St. Francis taught him and us that courage and sacrifice are what God asks of us all. One of his father's favorite quotes defines the son as well. It is from Edith Hamilton, the author of The Greek Way, who wrote, "Men are not made for safe havens. The fullness of life is in the hazards of life. To the heroic, desperate odds fling a challenge." Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. has stepped up to the challenge. He is brave and brilliant. We are blessed to have his witness. And that is all. Good night.